Okay. I just want to double check, Christian. Do you want to say a little bit at the start of this, or do you want me to just?
Yeah, I'll give like a short to 2-minute introduction pretty much, and then hand it over to you.
Lovely stuff. That sounds good. Just wanted to double check before I started yakking.
Yeah, no worries. I think we waited another minute and we can start.
Sounds good.
Okay, let's begin. Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome to the ATHENA project webinar, Developing a Platform to Combat FIMI, an Introduction to the ATHENA Technical Work Package. My name is Christian Reason from EOS, and I'll be moderating this webinar. I would like to begin with a brief introduction before handing it over to our main speaker for today, Dr. Gary Munnelly, a research fellow from the ADAPT Center at Trinity College Dublin. So the objectives of this webinar are to provide an overview of the ATHENA Work Package Free, outlining its goals and strategic role in the project, showcase the ATHENA content acquisition platform, highlighting its capabilities and use cases, to demonstrate the FIMI toolbox designed to detect and mitigate forward information, manipulation, and interference, present the key ATHENA APIs and their integration potential, share early dashboard wireframes and gather feedback on their functionality and design, and finally to invite stakeholders to actively contribute to the planning and design of the platform through open discussion. So thank you very much, and I'll hand it over to Dr. Munnelly. Gary, up to you.
Thanks a million, Christian. So let me share some slides. And before we begin, I do want to say there is a live demo absolutely planned for this, and everything we're going to talk through today is live, functional, and generally integrated. I'm not going to say bug-free. I would never be so egotistical as to imply that we build bug-free software. And in fact, if we get to the public demo, we're going to see a couple of things that look a little bit janky. But there's a lot of context around this as well. So what I want to do is kind of step through sort of the major tasks that we've been working on, and then do our live demo and hopefully open up the floor for discussion. But it's a lot of content. So let's see how we get on. Let's see how much of this content we skip. As Christian has said, title of this session is Developing a Platform to Combat FIMI, an Introduction to the ATHENA Technical Work Package. I assume if you signed up for this little webinar, then you're aware of what we're doing in ATHENA. It is a project to identify and study foreign information manipulation and interference, where disinformation is weaponized by states to destabilize and attack other countries. The work done in ATHENA to date has provided 32 case studies of FIMI around Europe, which has already been a major contribution to research. But I, in my capacity as the Work Package 3 lead, more focused on what we can do as software developers and as engineers to build tools that support that kind of research. And in the pursuit of that goal, we kind of have four primary tasks. There is a fifth task, officially in the grant agreement, but there are four kind of main ones. We want to make it more efficient to source and collect FIMI data. We want to process and store that FIMI data and then apply kind of state-of-the-art knowledge engineering techniques to it so that it becomes more useful, it becomes smarter, it becomes easier to search. We want to develop a FIMI toolbox, which is a collection of analytical tools that we can use to classify the data that we find according to various assessments of its reliability, perhaps suspicious characteristics that it may exhibit. And then we want to develop an Athena dashboard and some briefing logic, which can be used by end users to investigate FIMI. And our kind of target end users here are people who would typically be doing fact checking. So journalists, fact checkers. We also want to make policy recommendations off the back of this project. So this dashboard and the concept of briefing logic kind of feeds into that idea that the insights we produce and the data that we generate can be used to make policy decisions by providing high-level overviews of FIMI attacks, how they unfold, and what they generally look like. We sort of have 4 performance indicators that we're using to assess how well we're doing. So before the end of the project, we're actually going to go live 6 months before we conclude, which is middle of next year. So we will have a pilot operation fully end-to-end sourcing FIMI data, analyzing FIMI data, and then providing insights running for 6 months starting next year. We want to provide in that FIMI toolbox, there should be at least 5 different analytical tools. And these tools will break down into 4 categories. We will have text analysis tools, image and video analysis tools, network analysis tools, and decision support tools. I'm kind of happy to report that to date, we already have about 5 tools integrated, mostly in text categorization, but also image and video analysis. So we're well on our way to hitting this milestone. We just need to get our network analysis and decision support tools online, and we already kind of know what they're going to be. So we're in a pretty strong position there. We're going to do a technical analysis of at least 5 FIMI campaigns. Now, I mentioned that we've done 32 case studies in Athena. We can pretty comfortably select 5 of those and show how we can investigate them using Athena. But it would also be interesting if when that pilot study goes live, we can discover and demonstrate an analysis of 5 new and emerging FIMI campaigns. So, you know, I'm not worried about that number 5. We could do it as a retrospective. I would really love if we could do it in a more proactive way. We'll see how that shakes out next year. And one of the big things that we're looking at achieving is interoperability with these existing information sharing tools. I don't think any one project, any one platform, any one set of tools are going to be the single silver bullet that solves FIMI. We all contribute a little bit to the problem, or to the solution, I should say, to this problem. And this will all work better if our tools can be integrated and talk to each other. So we are taking the time to ensure that we are interoperable in various ways with other tools. And I'll talk a little bit about that over the course of this presentation and our demonstration. To give you a little roadmap, what we're going to do is we're going to step through the architecture that we've designed and built in this presentation, just so that you kind of get a sense of what we've done, give you some context of where we are, what we have done, what we haven't done, and then we'll jump in and play around with some data and show some of this functionality that we've implemented. This breaks down into a few different sections. So first of all, there's the challenge of data ingestion. How do we find data? How do we integrate it into the system? Where is it coming from? What happens to it at the point of ingestion? This is by far and away kind of the least standardized, most noisy part of the project, because every source that we want to harvest data from is kind of a little different. So, you know, we have social media APIs where we can get access to them, the likes of Telegram and YouTube. We have fake news websites, which we have found in abundance. And then we're looking at also integrating with trusted sources, so other EU projects. But the idea is that a lot of these sources of data that we're finding are quite ephemeral, right? Like they spin up, they spew some nonsense for a few months, then they get flagged and they get taken down and they get brought up somewhere else then. So the idea is to have a series of very small, very nimble content scraping applications, which we can deploy very rapidly to meet new and emerging sources or vectors of FIMI. So these things are very throwaway. But once we've got the data, it gets pulled up into our data storage and treatment area, which is a little bit more robust and a lot more standardized. Here, what we apply is a content normalization process where all of that noisy data is reduced into a simple set of features that we are interested in looking at. Things like, you know, main textual content, what images does something contain, what other sources does it link out to, which platforms can we connect it to, who are the states funding these platforms, and so on and so forth. This all gets pulled up into our harmonized data model, which at the moment is a relational database. And then we have an event-driven system where the rest of Athena is notified that new data is available, and the various components of our analytical pipeline can kick in. One of these is the state-of-the-art knowledge engineering, which I mentioned, where that harmonized data model, now that everything has been massaged into a standard format, is pulled up into linked data. So we have a triple store. We're using RDF4J and a bunch of standard vocabularies, and we make the content searchable as well through Elasticsearch. And that search functionality is quite powerful. We're at the stage now where we can say, give me all articles that mention Zelensky that have an unreliability score of 60% and look like they're probably clickbait. That functionality is live today, which I think is already really useful in terms of combating FIMI and identifying emerging FIMI narratives. We also have our FIMI toolbox, which is a bit mislabeled in this diagram, apologies, which is comprised of all of the analytical tools that we then employ to analyze that content. So things like our media bias and analytical tools, our named entity recognition tools, and so on and so forth. And then the last step, once you have all of this rich data, is how do you present it to an end user in such a way that it's useful and insightful? And that's our Athena dashboard and our briefing assembly logic, where different users will be able to generate different visualizations, different slices through that data to inform them about FIMI attacks that are relevant to their specific domain. So I'm going to go through each of the stages in this pipeline to give you some context. And that'll take up, I think, probably the guts of this presentation, and then we'll jump in and play with it for real. So starting at the beginning, our data ingestion engine, finding the data. And I mean, the number one question that we sort of have at this stage in the pipeline is, how do you identify